in the vast and multifaceted universe of Pink Floyd, where sonic monoliths like The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and The Wall cast long and imposing shadows, there exist less illuminated corners, hidden pearls that, while not boasting the same commercial brilliance or massive recognition, encapsulate crucial moments of the band's metamorphosis. Julia Dream, an ethereal and melancholic composition released as the B-side to the single It Would Be So Nice in April 1968, is precisely one of these discrete gems, frequently overlooked in broader retrospectives. This song is not merely a collector's curiosity, but a sonic artifact of immense documentary and artistic value, a true portal to the delicate and uncertain moment when Pink Floyd was navigating. From the turbulent waters of lysergic psychedelia, personified by the erratic genius of Syd Barrett, towards the well springs of complexity and ambition of progressive rock that would define their golden era. Analyzing Julia Dream is, therefore, more than dissecting a simple song. It is witnessing Pink Floyd in a state of creative flux, seeking a new sonic and lyrical identity after the painful and inevitable departure of its founding member and initial main driving force. What lends this piece an enduring fascination, capable of intriguing both the most ardent devotees of the band and the critics and musicologists who delve into rock's stylistic transitions, is its intrinsic ability to foreshadow the grandeur to come, while at the same time preserving an almost artisanal fragility. The answer to this enigma lies in a particular alchemy, sonic experimentalism that, though restrained, was audacious for a B-side, lyrics that delve into surrealism and introspection, moving away from Barrett's childlike whimsy, but not yet reaching Waters' social or philosophical critique, and a production that, within the technological limitations of 1968, sought to expand rock's sonic palette. Musically, Julia Dream presents itself as an engaging paradox. Credited to Roger Waters for the lyrics and David Gilmour for the music, though some sources attribute the entire music to Waters, and others more consistently to Gilmour in terms of melody and atmosphere, with Waters on vocals and lyrics. One of the first glimmers of the songwriting dynamic that would solidify. The song is a study in atmospheric minimalism. This was one of Gilmour's first compositional efforts to find an official recording with Pink Floyd, and it already reveals a melodic sensibility and a predilection for textures that would become hallmarks of his style. The piece is bathed in an ethereal, almost palpable aura, built upon a foundation of acoustic guitars fingerpicked with a lightness that suggests flotation. These chords, often open and resonant, do not seek virtuosity but rather the creation of a sonic space, an environment. Upon this acoustic foundation unfolds the song's instrumental protagonist, the Mellotron. The Mellotron, that analog precursor to modern samplers, which used magnetic tapes to reproduce sounds of orchestral instruments and choirs, was already beginning to insinuate itself into the lexicon of progressive rock. In Julia Dream, it is handled, probably by Richard Wright, whose contribution to the band's textures is often underestimated in this early transitional period, with remarkable delicacy and subtlety. Instead of the grandiose and symphonic arrangements that would characterize the use of the Mellotron by bands like King Crimson or Genesis in the 70s, here it weaves soundscapes that evoke mist, distances, and an almost pastoral melancholy. The eye, Mellotron's strings and flutes do not dominate, but intertwine with the acoustic guitar, creating an effect of depth and vastness. This approach indeed anticipates the atmosphere of contemplation and introspection that Wright would explore in later compositions, such as Grantchester Meadows from the album Ummagumma, or the equally underrated If from Adam Heartmother. The way the Mellotron is used here is less a statement and more a whisper, contributing to the sensation of being immersed in a waking dream, where each note seems to reverberate in an empty and infinite space, a quality accentuated by Norman Smith's production, which skillfully captured this spatiality. The vocals, surprisingly, are predominantly by Roger Waters, not Gilmour or Wright, who possessed classically more beautiful or conventional timbres. Waters' choice, with his whispered, almost restrained lament-like delivery, adds a layer of vulnerability and a certain emotional rawness to the song. His voice, not yet laden with the anger and cynicism that would mark his later performances, here sounds fragile, introspective, as if confiding a secret or narrating a fleeting dream to the listener. This vocal delivery perfectly complements the minimalist arrangement, which is nonetheless dense in its capacity to evoke images and sensations. Nick Mason's drumming is equally discreet, using cymbals and soft percussion that punctuate rather than propel the song, serving as a subtle anchor in the tide of textures. Waters' bass line, when perceptible, is melodic and fundamental, but never intrusive, following the logic of serving the overall atmosphere. The song's structure also departs from the conventional verse-chorus bridge. It develops more fluidly, almost like a sonic vignette, with sections that merge and evolve organically. There is a hypnotic quality to its progression, accentuated by subtle melodic repetitions and the absence of an obvious climax. It is a piece that invites passive immersion, rather than demanding active, analytical listening at first. This arrangement, which could be described as impressionistic, where suggestion and atmosphere prevail over direct statement, was a bold move for a band that was still, in a way, under the shadow of Barrett's pop and psychedelic exuberance. The lyrics of Julia Dream, credited to Roger Waters, are a crucial component of its enigma and beauty. Replete with aquatic, dreamlike imagery and fleeting characters, they reflect the band's dive into more abstract and introspective lyrical territories, a clear consequence of the search for new thematic paths after Syd Barrett's departure. The opening line, "Julia Dream, dreamboat queen, queen of all my dreams," immediately establishes a tone of reverie and an almost archetypal idealization. Julia is not presented as an earthly figure, but as a spectral entity, a muse inhabiting the unconscious, perhaps a personification of the Jungian anima, or simply a symbol of unattainable beauty and nostalgia for something lost or never possessed. Subsequent images, sunlight bright upon her head, sleeping by a stream, evoke a pastoral and serene landscape, yet permeated by a sense of transience. The Dreamboat Queen suggests a journey through the waters of the subconscious, a theme Pink Floyd would explore in various ways throughout their career. The narrative is fragmented, non-linear, mirroring the often illogical logic of dreams. There is no clear story being told, but rather a succession of poetic vignettes that paint an emotional picture. This lyrical style marks a significant transition. While Barrett's lyrics were often populated by gnomes, scarecrows, and psychedelic fairy tales, imbued with a sense of childlike wonder and eccentricity, Waters' lyrics in Julia Dream begin to probe more melancholic and existential depths, albeit in a veiled manner. The search for new paths after the departure of their visionary leader was not only musical, but also conceptual and poetic. Julia Dream can be seen as one of Waters' first experiments in finding his own lyrical voice, a voice that would become progressively more assertive, philosophical, and politicized. The liquidity of the imagery, the stream, the dreamboat, and the fleeting nature of Julia herself, Will She Fly Away, contribute to the sense of impermanence and to the song's ethereal quality. There is a fragile beauty and an underlying sadness in these words, a yearning for something that is by definition unattainable or ephemeral. This exploration of themes like loss, memory, and the illusory nature of reality would become central to Pink Floyd's later work, albeit expressed in more direct and conceptual ways. When Julia Dream was released in 1968, critical reception was, at best, ambivalent. The single, It Would Be So Nice, for which it was the B-side, was a commercial failure, failing even to enter the British charts, a blow to a band trying to re-establish itself. The A-side, a somewhat forced attempt at more palatable psychedelic pop written by Richard Wright, lacked the spark that had propelled the early successes of the Barrett era. In this context, Julia Dream, with its introspective and experimental nature, was hardly going to be the flagship to win back audiences or critics. Many critics of the time, still attached to the revolutionary impact and unique eccentricity of The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, 1967, were slow to assimilate the new, darker, and more atmospheric direction the band was beginning to take. Some saw songs like Julia Dream as a pretentious style exercise, an attempt to sound deep without corresponding substance. Others, a more perceptive minority, perhaps recognized in it a glimpse of future potential, a seed of what would become Pink Floyd's spatial and reflective sound. The band itself was experiencing a period of intense turmoil and uncertainty. Syd Barrett, the initial creative soul, was psychologically disintegrating, becoming an erratic and unsustainable presence. David Gilmour had been recruited in early 1968, initially to complement Barrett live, but quickly assumed the role of lead guitarist as Syd's condition worsened. Julia Dream emerges in this leadership vacuum, in this collective effort to find a new balance and a new voice. The song was, in a way, overshadowed by this troubled moment and by the group's pressing need to redefine itself to the public and the industry. Furthermore, its atmospheric and almost impressionistic structure, devoid of obvious pop hooks or the visceral energy of the heavier rock gaining prominence in the late 60s, with names like Cream, Jimi Hendrix Experience, and Led Zeppelin beginning to emerge, did not easily fit into dominant trends. Psychedelic rock, in its purest and most effervescent 1967 form, was already beginning to show signs of exhaustion or to transform into something new. Julia Dream was definitively neither one nor the other. It was a hybrid, a harbinger. However, as years and decades passed, and Pink Floyd consolidated itself as one of the biggest bands on the planet, Julia Dream began to be rediscovered. More dedicated fans delving deep into the discography found a singular beauty in it. Compilations like Relics, 1971, and later the box set Shine On, 1992, and the early years series compilations helped bring the song to a wider audience. Its cult status grew, especially among those who value the less obvious nuances of the band's catalog, listeners who see in tracks like Julia Dream not a mere fleeting experiment or a detour, but a silent manifesto of a band in painful, yet fruitful, gestation. The true importance of Julia Dream perhaps lies less in its immediate impact and more in its subterranean resonance, its ability to prefigure crucial elements of the sound and themes that Pink Floyd would masterfully develop in the following years. Although it might seem a considerable leap from its delicacy to the magnitude of works like Echoes from Metal 1971, the connection exists. The dreamlike ambiance, the use of sonic textures to create mental landscapes, the sense of space, and the meditative melancholy of Julia Dream are embryos of what would be expanded in Echoes. The use of subtle dissonances and the harmonic progression that evokes a feeling of searching and mystery can also be seen as precursors. Even the cosmic melancholy and homage to Syd Barrett in Shine On You Crazy Diamond from Wish You Were Here 1975 find a distant echo in the atmosphere of loss and reverie of Julia Dream. The figure of Julia, this dreamboat queen, can be interpreted as a feminine archetype that, in different forms, would resurface in the band's work. Some theorists and fans venture connections with the transcendental female vocal force of the Great Gig in the Sky from The Dark Side of the Moon 1973, or even with allusions to the maternal figure or the moon, a classic feminine symbol, in songs like Brain Damage, The Lunatic is on the Grass, and If the Band You're In Starts, playing different tunes. While these connections may be more speculative, they point to the symbolic richness the band was beginning to explore. This ability of Julia Dream to sow ideas and atmospheres that would fully blossom later is what makes it a gem for attentive listeners. Those who understand that Pink Floyd's magic never resided solely in Gilmour's iconic guitar solos or Waters' megalomaniacal concepts, but also in Wright's subtle tapestry of textures, Mason's inventive percussion, and, crucially, in the silences between the notes, the spaces that allow the listener's imagination to fill the gaps. Julia Dream is a master of these silences and spaces. Given its history, its intrinsic qualities, and its subtle influence, how then to classify Julia Dream within the Pink Floyd canon? Is it a forgotten masterpiece wronged by its discreet release in the context of its creation? Or would it be more accurately a minor experiment, interesting but not essential, a step on the band's evolutionary ladder? The answer, as often happens in art, probably lies in an intermediate territory, or perhaps depends on the listener's perspective. Objectively, Julia Dream does not possess the epic grandeur of Comfortably Numb, the structural complexity of Dogs, or the caustic lyrical inventiveness of Time. It is not a song that defines an album or an era in the same way these others do. However, to label it minor would be to underestimate its peculiar beauty, its singular atmosphere, and its importance as a document of a vital transition. Its beauty is almost fragile, vulnerable, like the figure of Julia herself. There is an honesty in its apparent simplicity, an absence of artifice that makes it touching. It is as if, for a brief and fleeting moment, before the pressures of fame, internal tensions, and artistic ambitions led them to build sonic cathedrals, Pink Floyd had managed to capture the intangible essence of a dream and translate it into music. Few bands, even those known for their dreamlike explorations, have achieved such a feat with the delicacy and sincerity demonstrated in Julia Dream. It represents a Pink Floyd still unsure, but already immensely talented, fumbling in the dark for a light that would guide them out of Barrett's shadow and towards their own brilliant future. In this sense, Julia Dream is more than a song. It is a melancholic sigh, a glimpse of potential, a whispered promise of what was to come. It is a testament to the band's creative resilience and their ability to find beauty even in uncertainty. For the listener seeking only the great hits and the most bombastic moments, Julia Dream may go unnoticed. But for those who dedicate themselves to exploring the deeper corners and subtler nuances of Pink Floyd's journey, it reveals itself as an essential piece, a missing link that enriches the understanding of the trajectory of one of the most innovative and influential bands in rock history. It does not scream for attention. It invites with a whisper to a more intimate and contemplative listening. Julia Dream thus remains a discreet beacon, illuminating a specific corridor in the vast architecture of Pink Floyd's work. It is an invitation to contemplation, a piece that rewards attentive listening with its enveloping atmosphere and melancholic beauty. It reminds us that a band's greatness often lies not only in its highest peaks, but also in its most serene valleys and its most subtle transitions. We invite you, who have followed this in-depth analysis, to continue this journey of discovery. Subscribe to the Philosophia Floyd channel, where our mission is precisely this: to explore the hidden layers, the less celebrated songs, and the profound concepts that permeate Pink Floyd's discography. There you will find detailed analyses of other obscure pearls such as Embryo, Cymbeline, or Grantchester Meadows, as well as exclusive documentaries that delve into the rich history and philosophy behind the band. Be sure to register your personal interpretation of Julia Dream in the comments below. Is she an ethereal muse, a ghost from Barrett's past, an allegory of the band's own transforming soul, or something entirely different? The discussion of Pink Floyd's work is a fertile and constantly expanding field, and your voice, your perspective, is a valuable contribution to this dialogue. Click like if this analysis resonated with you. Share this content with other Pink Floyd and progressive rock aficionados, and join us as we continue to unravel the countless mysteries and wonders contained in the music of this iconic band. Our next sonic expedition will take us into the meanderings of Atom Heart Mother, another monumental and watershed work. Until then, may musical dreams continue to inspire us.